So even though we've gotten develop all synced up on the production site, what we want to do is use the master branch on the production site in order to push releases to it. So let's go ahead and check out master. And from this point on, we're going to leave production on the master branch. So at this point, we can do development on the develop branch without impacting the master branch, which means that on production, it's going to be a bit harder to mess things up. If we do a git pull while we're on the master branch, we'll only pull in the exact changes that we wanted to push to production anyway. Let's go ahead and demonstrate real quick. I'm going to jump over to the development command line. This is our development site. And since we're on the develop branch, let's go ahead and make a modification. Now this is going to be a modification that we don't push to the master branch. So go ahead and make sure you're on the development site. And let's open up the 9th step for the input.module. Copy the entire code, and then open up input.module and paste over this code and save it. And now let's go ahead and commit this change. First, let's do a git status to make sure that we're just committing what we want to. Okay, looks good. So the commit is git commit. And we're passing the A command to skip staging, and the message is added step 9 of input.module. Hit enter. And so now we're committed. Let's go ahead and push it to the remote site. So now if we jump to production, and let's say this change is one that we definitely wanted to keep track of and share among various team members, but it's not something that we wanted to push to production. Here, now that we're on the master branch, if we do git pull, you see we got some information here, but if we take a look at the log with git log, you'll see that the last commit message is resolved conflict in input.module. That's because the changes that we pulled in were for the development branch, not for the master branch. So we're safe. I'm going to hit Q to exit out of Vim. At this point, let's go ahead and create a release. So we'll first do some development on the develop branch, and then we'll merge those into the master branch and pull in those changes on our production site. So let's switch over to our development site, and let's make some modifications. I'm going to jump to the file directory, and I'm going to open up the resource pack, and I'm going to copy over the assets folder, which is just a module called assets. And I'm going to paste it in the sites, all modules, custom directory. And now let's go ahead and jump back to the command line. I'm going to clear the back scroll. Let's do a git status. Okay, we have our sites, all modules, custom assets. I want to go ahead and add all of this in. So let's go ahead and do git add, and then the name of the folder. And if we do git status now, we'll see all of those new files added. Now let's go ahead and commit this. The command is git commit, and then the message is added assets module. So now we should be up to date. If we do git status, we're good to go, nothing to commit. Let's go ahead and make one more modification before we create a release. So I'm going to jump back to the files, and in the assets folder, I'm going to go ahead and expand it and expand the steps folder. And I'm going to open up the first step. I'm going to select and copy all of the code, and then I'm going to jump back and open up the assets.module file. And I'm going to paste in all of the code. Now let's go ahead and commit this. I'm going to jump back to the command line. I'm going to do a git status just to make sure that we've modified just the one file. Okay, we're good to go. Let's do a commit. The command is git commit, passing A in order to skip staging, and then the message is added step 1 of assets.module. I'll hit enter. Okay, and just for good measure, let's go ahead and push this to the remote repository. So let's say all of these changes led up to a point where we're ready to make a new release into production. So our first step is to merge the changes from the develop branch into our master branch. And we've done this before. Let's go ahead and do it again. So we're going to switch to the master branch with git checkout master. And now let's go ahead and merge in the development branch with git merge and then the name of the branch. Next, let's go ahead and tag this release using the tag command. But before we do that, let's look at the previous tags in order to make sure that we're incrementing properly. So I'm going to use git tag and then pass it the L parameter. So we have just one tag, which is 1.2. So we're going to go ahead and tag this with 1.3. We'll do git tag. We'll name it 1.3. We'll pass it the A parameter in order to make this annotated. And the message will be first release after creating the develop track/branch. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so now if we do git tag again, we see that we have a 1.2 and 1.3 tag. So to complete our release, what we need to do is push these changes to the remote repository and then pull them into production. So let's go ahead and do a git push. And then let's jump to production. And we'll do a git pull. And you see all of our assets files are being pulled in. This setup of using a development branch and then a production branch, which we're using the master branch for, is a pretty simple setup, but it helps guard you against making some pretty common mistakes. As we work through this series, we're going to enhance this workflow a bit so that there's an intermediary branch between the develop branch and the master branch called a release branch. What we'll do there is create a new branch for release so that we can make modifications to that branch to fix any bugs there and allow development to work on a different track to prepare for future releases and to begin to add new features in. What we're doing here is preparing a release and then pushing it straight to production. But in bigger projects or projects that require more stability, there's going to be an intermediary staging site where the release is tested and any bugs are fixed before it gets pushed to production. Because of that, it means that we need to make those bug fixes to the release site without pulling in new features that are being added to the development branch. If all of that sounds a little complicated, don't worry about it. It may be a little too much for your personal workflow, but we're going to go through it in detail later, and it's a good setup to understand so that you can work easily with larger projects and bigger teams.